2025 has been a pretty good year for comics. Across the landscape of Marvel, DC, and many excellent indie publishers, I've read a ton of great books from an array of talented writers and artists. But if I were to pick one series that I think defines this year, it would have to be Absolute Batman. At the start of 2025, I released a video called The Ultimate Guide to Absolute DC, where I spotlighted each new title in DC's Absolute Universe that had launched the previous October. Cut to the end of the year, and I think it's fair to say that the Absolute Universe has been one of the biggest stories in all of comics, and the imprint's flagship title, Absolute Batman, has been one of the most successful and widely talked about comic books in recent memory. The brainchild of writer Scott Snyder and artist Nick Dragotta, Absolute Batman is a bold and striking reimagining of the iconic hero. It reintroduces Bruce Wayne as a 20-something-year-old engineer from a working-class family who adopts the Batman persona to wage a one-man war against corruption, injustice, and exploitation within Gotham. At the time of recording, 15 issues of this series have been released, many of which have been the best-selling title of their respective month and some of the most well-received recent comics by a mainstream publisher. And with Absolute Batman continuing at full speed into 2026, I figured now would be the perfect time to examine this series and consider why it's been so successful. So in this video, I want to explore the history behind Absolute Batman, discuss how it came to be, and how Snyder and Dragotta sought to rebuild the Dark Knight for this new continuity, and try to explain why this unique reinvention of the beloved hero has captured the imagination of so many readers. Before we jump into the main portion of this video, I want to give a really quick and special shout out to my friends at Idle Hands 3D Creations, who recently gifted me this absolutely incredible Absolute Batman statue. This isn't sponsored, I just really wanted to show you how incredibly detailed this statue is. Be sure to check out Idle Hands 3D Creations on both Instagram and Facebook. I will leave links in the video description. In order to explain Absolute Batman's success, it's first worth explaining how this series came to be, as well as the story behind its writer, Scott Snyder, and his history with the Dark Knight. Scott Snyder is often regarded as one of the definitive 21st century Batman writers. After breaking into superhero comics in the late 2000s, his first foray with the Caped Crusader came in January of 2011, in the pages of Detective Comics issue 871. Snyder took over the long-running title on the eve of DC's New 52 reboot, penning critically acclaimed stories like The Black Mirror, illustrated by Jock and Francesco Francavilla, and Gates of Gotham, co-written with Kyle Higgins with art by Trevor McCarthy. The success of Snyder's tenure on Detective Comics led to him taking over the flagship Batman book in September 2011. Forming a now legendary partnership with artist Greg Capullo, Snyder expertly steered the Dark Knight into a new era within the New 52, maintaining much of Batman's history and existing status quo, while also introducing an array of new concepts, characters, and plot points. Snyder and Capullo's debut story arc, The Court of Owls, immediately established them as a generational creative team. Told throughout the first 7 issues of Batman Volume 2, the story followed Batman investigating a secret society within Gotham, which orchestrated much of the city's history from the shadows and had ties to many key families, namely the Waynes and the Graysons. Although the secret society concept had been previously explored by other writers, namely the Black Glove from Grant Morrison's run in the mid to late 2000s, Snyder and Capullo executed this concept through a fascinating deconstruction of Bruce Wayne's worldview and psyche, with the hero forced through both a physical and mental labyrinth to uncover the truth behind these new villains. Upon its release, the Court of Owls story was met with immediate critical and commercial acclaim, and served as the launching point for Snyder and Capullo's grand vision for The Dark Knight. As a result, the Batman run lasted for 52 issues and featured several other memorable storylines, such as Death of the Family, 0 Year, Endgame, and Super Heavy. By the time that Scott Snyder exited the Batman series in May of 2016, he had established himself as one of the character's definitive modern writers. As a result, while the hero's main series would be taken over by a brand new creative team, Snyder would continue to work on numerous Batman-centric projects over the next several years. In 2016, the writer launched All-Star Batman, a 14-issue series that served as a spiritual follow-up to his mainline run. A year later, he reunited with Capullo for Dark Knight's Metal. This ambitious crossover saw Bruce Wayne discover the existence of the Dark Multiverse, and culminated with the introduction of the sinister Batman Who Laughs. Alongside launching a sequel event, Dark Knight's Death Metal, in June of 2020, Snyder and Capullo also released Batman Last Night on Earth. This Black Label miniseries sees the Caped Crusader awaken in Arkham Asylum with no memory of being Batman, and soon after finds himself stuck in a dystopian wasteland ruled by a mysterious figure called Omega. These comics, alongside Snyder's run on Justice League, seemingly marked the end of his storied history with Batman, as in 2021, Snyder officially left DC to work full-time on his creator-owned projects. However, around the summer of 2023, things began to change. Not only did Snyder start developing new ideas for a bold reinvention of Batman, but he also came up with an expansive and ambitious new publishing initiative that would shake up the entire DC universe. But to best explain how this concept came to be and how it developed into the Absolute Universe, I sat down with Scott Snyder earlier this year and asked him about how this initiative came together.
The way that all of it came about really was, when I finally left DC in 2020 after being there for about 10 years, I really got to enjoy superhero comics as an outsider. And one of the strange things was, you feel this real pride being part of that community, having been part of that community, and the sort of cultural conversation about superheroes at that time, it just felt like people were really down on superheroes and that, it was over and done. And looking around comics, it felt like so many of the best stories in a long time were being told at that moment, from Immortal Hulk to Nightwing to World's Finest and on and on. And so it became this mission statement for me and Josh Williamson. We had been talking about it for a while. Like, you know what? We miss the days when DC and Marvel, but, being a part of DC, when DC would take these big swings where we would do things like the New 52 or Rebirth. Some of us there always felt like, why don't we do all these things at the same time? Like, why don't we try something more nuanced, where we do some really new, we do a universe where it's brand new books and brand new takes on the superheroes, all of them, like really modernized takes, like the New 52 is supposed to be. And then why don't we also do something that's more like Rebirth? It gives traditional fans that have been reading a long time the biggest, most epic stories they could ask for, and provide a jumping on point for everybody. Me and Josh, a few years ago, we were like, you know what? Let's just see if DC's up for it. Why not? Let's see if they'll do it if we get together and sort of pen something. And I remember meeting with Jim Lee, like at New York a few years ago, and telling him the idea, and he was like, you know what? Why not? Let's see if we can get it done. For me, the ethos of the Absolute Universe was really simple. It was just bringing in creators, and that was one of the big things about the whole All-In initiative. It was trying to be really creator forward, allowing creators to take big swings, and saying, especially with the Absolute line, the only way to do it would be if creators came in with really strong ideas about how to take the hero and make them someone that was even more exciting to you, still true to core, but someone who was an underdog in this world, someone who didn't have some of the same advantages, and somebody who felt like they were anything vestigial about that character could be changed. The pitch that I used to go to other creators to sort of get them excited about Absolute was a Batman pitch. It was the pitch that is Absolute Batman. It was what if you, as an example, you could do Batman like this, if you took Batman and inverted the mythology where he has no money and no resources, and he's outside the system and the chaos, and Joker and all the villains are part of the system. Anyway, that was the pitch. And then eventually, of course, James Tynan, who's, one of my best friends, was the one that called me when I was sort of desperately looking for people to do Absolute Batman. And he was like, I have somebody for you. And I was just like, well, who is it? You? Please tell me you're going to do it. And he was like, no, you. And I was like, well, I'm not going back to Batman. He knew, because I had been pitching the book nonstop. I mean, it really was like every time I said you could do it like this, I was like, oh man, I wish I really do. I would like to do that one day. I wish I could do that. But, and it's become I mean, I was terrified though. I'll say that. And I know this is the longest answer in the history of the world, but I was terrified. I mean, I'm still terrified. But it really was like, if everybody's taking their biggest swing, then this genuinely was mine. Like, to just say, okay, well, if I can come on and do something that doesn't feel repetitive and feels inventive, then that would be my biggest contribution. So why not?
The Absolute Universe would be officially unveiled by DC in July of 2024, with the 3 launch titles that would spearhead this initiative being announced as Absolute Batman by Scott Snyder and Nick Dragotta, Absolute Superman by Jason Aaron and Rafa Sandoval, and Absolute Wonder Woman by Kelly Thompson and Hayden Sherman. These 3 ongoing titles would be part of DC's broader All-In relaunch, and would be formally introduced in the All-In special released that October. This marks Snyder's full-time return to The Dark Knight, albeit with a much bolder and more drastic reinvention of Batman. This iteration of Bruce Wayne would be considerably younger, raised in Crime Alley without the privilege that his mainline counterpart had, and instead of being a protector of law and order, he would lead an insurgent fight against an unjust system. Regarding how he conceived of this ground-up reimagining of Batman, Scott Snyder told me that
Batman in this universe, he's smart. He's very smart. You know, he still is but he can be anyone. Like he Bruce Wayne is special. Don't get me wrong, because he's as determined, if not more determined, than Bruce in the main universe. He's not an anarchist. He's not chaos, you know, embodied. But he is ready to break things to rebuild them. He's a builder, you know. And that idea of being able to write him from that perspective, especially at a moment like now, and because that's really the thing, when it's like where it came from, like the idea wasn't just like what hasn't been done on Batman or what haven't I seen. It really came from this concept of, okay, well, if we're going to do an absolute universe, then the characters need to be modern and resonant. And I kept being like, well, when I wrote Batman before, I wrote him as me, sort of going up against the things I was most afraid of. Not that I have anything in common with Batman, but Batman, meaning he was an extension of the way in which I wish I was brave, facing the things I'm afraid of, whether that was fatherhood and like death of the family and deeply coded, so you don't necessarily see it that way. But for me, that's what that story is, or the history and legacy of the book itself and Court of Owls. Like, but with now, it's hard for me to inhabit that, not because I'm over Batman, but because I really did do that a lot. And there are things that I'm afraid of now, but as a father with kids now that are, when I started Batman, my son was 2, and now my son is, you know, he's 17, about to start college. And I have 2 other sons, one of whom is 13 and then one is 5. So, for me, I'm much more afraid of the world for them than I am for myself. And that is a very different construction. And so Batman isn't, you either write Batman as a father where he's protecting the Bat family in some way, or you don't be Batman. And so for me, that's what this series is. I'm Alfred. I'm the one watching through Alfred's eyes, and seeing Batman as my kids, and they don't think billionaires are cool. They don't like billionaires. They don't want to be part of the system. They have things they're passionate about, and they feel very much like they're not going to accept the world handed to them the way it is. They believe in change, and that's inspiring to someone who feels guilty and complicit in the world they were handed. And that's Alfred, you know. So that's the series to me, is Bruce being not just this kind of big hulking thing, but the sort of physical manifestation of that indomitable will that young people have to be like, I refuse to accept that this is what this is. I believe we can change things, or I can change things, and I am willing to break it if it needs to be broken to be fixed.
Before we continue though, I want to take a second and talk to you about something I should probably promote more often, patreon.com/Owen Likes Comics. I've been working on this channel full time for a little while now. It's my absolute dream job and I love it, and it wouldn't be possible without everyone who watches, subscribes, likes and comments, as well as all of my supporters over on Patreon. In case you didn't know, I release several bonus videos and podcasts every month on my Patreon, as well as the full uncut conversations with special guests that I record as part of these videos. You can also watch all of my videos ad-free and several days early and be part of a community of like-minded people where we regularly chat about comics, movies and everything else. There are multiple different tiers with unique perks starting at just $1 per month. I will leave links in the video description and the pinned comment, or just go to patreon.com/Owen Likes Comics. At the very least, check it out and see if it's something you'd be interested in. Thank you for all of your support, and let's get back to the video. The first 6 issues of Absolute Batman comprise the book's debut story arc, The Zoo. Released between October 2024 and March of 2025, these issues serve as our introduction into this new world of the Caped Crusader, his overarching mission, and what sets him apart from any other Batman we've seen before. The series actually opens with Alfred Pennyworth, who serves as the book's narrator. Depicted as an MI6 intelligence agent, he's sent to Gotham to investigate the Party Animals, a new gang taking over the city's criminal underworld. We quickly learn that the Party Animals are led by Roman Sionis, aka Black Mask, who not only kills several of Gotham's established crime families, but is also responsible for running several notable crime rings across the world. Meanwhile, we're introduced to 24-year-old Bruce Wayne working out at Croc's gym, owned by his childhood friend Waylon Jones. Through a series of flashbacks, it's explained that Bruce's father, Thomas Wayne, was a school teacher shot and killed during a class trip to Gotham Zoo. Following his death, Bruce earned a university scholarship, studying everything from military history to chemistry, criminal psychology and mechanics. After taking jobs in sanitation and City Hall, he now works as a civil engineer, giving him deep knowledge of every corner of the city and the skills necessary to build his Batman costume and various gadgets. Witnessing Gotham's descent into chaos and violence with the Party Animals' emergence, Bruce adopts the Batman persona in order to combat them. During a town hall meeting held by Mayor Jim Gordon, the gang attacks City Hall, causing Batman to make a dramatic entrance. With Alfred watching on from afar, Bruce, despite being significantly outnumbered, takes out the gang members in brutal fashion, showing the lengths of his incredibly tactile costume and even revealing his chest emblem to be an axe head, using it to chop off the hand of the group's leader. This causes Alfred to develop something of a fascination with the vigilante, and the two men ultimately come face to face at the end of issue 1. After the tense introduction, Bruce and Alfred are forced to work together to escape from the Party Animals, with Alfred noting Bruce's unusual strategy of never retreating and always advancing forward despite the danger. It's during this period that we also discover that Bruce's mother Martha is still alive and working closely with Gordon. Gordon's leadership is quickly undermined though, with corrupt ex-mayor Hamilton Hill regaining his position with the help of Sionis, and institutes martial law to protect the city from the Batman vigilante. With a manhunt out for the Dark Knight and the entire system set against him, Bruce is forced to rely on his childhood best friends for help to take down Sionis and the Party Animals. This leads to him revealing his secret identity in issue 6, needing the help of Harvey Dent, Edward Nygma and Oz Cobblepot to track down Black Mask. Eventually, Sionis unleashes his master plan for Gotham, launching a cryptocurrency called Black Coin that can be earned through acts of violence, turning the city's population into a lawless and rageful mob with bounties placed on the heads of Batman, Gordon and Martha Wayne. While the latter have to evade several attacks as Gotham descends into chaos, Nygma uses his Riddler AI to locate Sionis' server on a yacht outside the city. Oz then flies Bruce out towards it, and Batman makes a dramatic entrance on the boat, fighting off several gang members until he comes face to face with Black Mask himself. Despite Sionis previously trying to pay Bruce off to give up his crusade, Batman demonstrates his unrelenting will and dedication to his mission. The two engage in a brutal fight, which ends with Batman stabbing Sionis through the mask with the ears of his cowl, before throwing him overboard and detonating a series of explosives in the server room. With the Party Animals defeated, Batman reunites with his friends and with Alfred, who tends to his wounds and agrees to help the young hero in his one-man war against corruption and injustice. The Zoo storyline then concludes with the revelation that Sionis' operations were secretly funded by the Joker, depicted as a mysterious billionaire who owned several black site prisons called Arcs. Joker's plan for Gotham was for the Party Animals to throw the city into anarchy, thereby allowing his company to be contracted to build a new prison to restore law and order order, with this facility being codenamed Arc M. With this plan foiled though, and Batman now gaining the Joker's attention, he orders his assistant to enlist Bane to take down the Dark Knight. These 6 issues immediately establish Absolute Batman as a much different version of the beloved hero. While Snyder and Dragotta do retain much of Batman's classic iconography, supporting cast and villains, almost every aspect of the hero status quo is changed or subverted in an unexpected way. In this world, Batman is a symbol of resistance, with Bruce Wayne being a member of Gotham's working class who rises up and fights against the city's corrupt elite. Many of his traditional rogues are now his closest allies, and instead of being the stoic master strategist we've become used to in the main universe, he's a far more brutal, idealistic, and emotionally driven fighter. With all of these fundamental changes to what Batman is and what he represents, this reinvention could have easily strayed too far away from the familiar, but thanks to Snyder's deep understanding and reverence of the character, at no point in these issues does absolute Bruce Wayne ever stop feeling like Batman. Coupled with this, Nick Dragotta's art and Frank Martin's colouring gives the series an immediately distinct visual identity. I absolutely adore how this comic looks, and seeing the Batman mythos portrayed through Dragotta's signature style adds so much visual flair to the world. These opening 6 issues also proved to be a tremendous success, both critically and commercially. Many pundits and critics praised Snyder and Dragotta for their fresh take on the Caped Crusader, while the debut issue became the best-selling comic of 2024, selling over 400,000 copies. Additionally, 4 of these 6 issues were also the highest-selling title of their respective month, with the other 2 still being in that month's top 3. This is all to say that by the time its first arc concluded, Absolute Batman had fully emerged as a sensation. But despite this success, Snyder and Dragotta weren't keen on slowing down, and as 2025 began to unfold, the series continued to go from strength to strength, quickly becoming one of the most well-received current titles and a definitive comic for the modern era. With the Zoo storyline concluding with issue 6, Absolute Batman soldiered on into 2025, while the Absolute Universe expanded with the release of 3 brand new series. With Absolute DC now established as a success and the universe ever expanding alongside it, Snyder and Dragotta remained laser focused on their version of the Caped Crusader, with the next set of issues seeking to challenge and deconstruct the very same Batman that they had just introduced. Before that though, issues 7 through 8 told a 2-part tale featuring guest artist Marcos Martin, which introduced the Absolute version of Mr. Freeze. Released throughout April and May, these issues followed Bruce's investigation of Arc M, even asking an old acquaintance, Matches Malone, to help him infiltrate the prison's construction crew. After learning that Arc M already contains several prisoners, Matches suddenly dies in front of Bruce. This leads Batman to investigate Victor Freeze, director of VCorp, a company that consults on the Arc M project. Posing as an engineer, Bruce sneaks into Freeze's office, where he discovers that the company cryogenically freezes terminally ill patients, and that Victor and his wife Nora established it to cure their son. Bruce is then confronted by Victor Jr., who reveals the frozen body of his parents and deduces Batman's identity, revealing his true form and knocking him unconscious. Victor then tries to cryogenically freeze Batman, while Bruce is flooded with memories of his friend Matches Malone. This gives him the strength to eventually break free, and Batman fights off a swarm of VCorp employees before escaping through a window. Issue 8 then concludes with Bruce's friends attending a memorial service for Matches, where Waylon Jones is abducted by an unseen figure who declares him a perfect specimen and sends him to Arc M. Waylon's capture directly leads into the Abomination story, which runs from issues 9 through 14. Here, we learn that Bane grew up in war-torn Santa Prisca, where his father led a rebellion against an oppressive regime. After his father's death, Bane was imprisoned before being approached by the Joker, who hires him as a mercenary in exchange for one day helping to liberate his home. Although it initially seems like Bane is sent to kill Batman, it's later explained that he's actually scouting him, believing that Bruce could be a worthy replacement as the Joker's right-hand man. Batman encounters Bane after breaking into Arc M to rescue Waylon, where he's easily defeated after Bane uses his venom to grow to monstrous proportions. Bane then takes Bruce's unconscious body to the Arc M scientists, who pump venom into his brain and spinal cord. Bruce is ultimately held captive for 90 days, days, barely surviving the various experiments that the scientists conduct on him. After surviving longer than any other subject, Bruce barely escapes the facility and reunites with Waylon, who has been transformed into a crocodile-like creature. Following Batman's escape, Bane hunts down and breaks Harvey, Oz, and Edward, leaving them all permanently disfigured and more closely resembling their main universe counterparts. With his friends now caught in the crossfire, Bruce vows revenge on Bane. After reuniting with Alfred, he's confronted by Selina Kyle, his former love and another childhood friend who left Gotham several years ago. Now herself a vigilante as Catwoman, Selina agrees to help Batman take down Bane. Bruce also enlists the help of a street gang called the Red Hood, meeting with its leader Harley Quinn to arrange a final showdown between himself and the villain. Batman and Bane's climactic fight occurs in issue 14, released in November of 2025. Here, the Dark Knight broadcasts the battle to the world, addressing the people of Gotham and encouraging them to rebel against the oppressive system that's ruined their lives. He also declares that if Bane wins, he'll willingly return to Arc M to complete the experiment. During the fight though, Bruce reveals that he's actually removed all the venom from his body. With the help of Selina, Waylon and the Red Hood, Batman enrages Bane and forces him to continuously inject himself with venom until he grows to unsustainable levels. Bruce then uses his discarded venom to overload Bane's system before driving his axe into the villain's spine and causing his entire body to implode. With Bane defeated, Bruce's friends reunite, watching his victory from the hospital beds, while a dismayed Joker ponders what's next. The final page of issue 14 sees the Arkham scientists salvaging Bane's brain and keeping it alive in stasis, while Joker sadistically reneges on their agreement, bombing and destroying Santa Prisca for his failure. This takes us up to the present day, where Absolute Batman number 15 has just hit shelves at the time of this video's release. A one-shot story from Snyder and guest artist Jock that tells the shocking origins of the Absolute Joker. The next two issues are set to introduce another longtime Batman foe in the form of Scarecrow. At the same time, Snyder has noted his future plans to further explore the relationship between Batman, Harley Quinn and the Red Hood gang, as well as building up to an eventual showdown between Batman and the Joker. In addition to this though, there are two other Absolute Batman stories that I haven't yet mentioned in this video. Firstly, during the Zeus storyline, Snyder and guest artist Gabriel Hernandez Walter revealed the full origin of the hero in issue 4. In this comic, we learn that Bruce as a child designed an emergency bridge system in the shape of a bat's wings, winning a school prize for his invention that was a trip to the Gotham Zoo. We also see his first night as Batman, donning a homemade costume designed to resemble a vampire and looking far slimmer. This first outing proves underwhelming, prompting Bruce to push himself to his physical and mental limits to become an unstoppable one-man force against injustice and evil. Likewise, in late October, DC released the Absolute Batman Annual. Written and drawn by Daniel Warren Johnson, this one-shot sees the Caped Crusader encounter a group of white supremacists, while also telling a profound emotional tale about Bruce meeting a priest with an unexpected connection to his father. With all of this in mind, looking back at the last 14 months since Absolute Batman began, it's impressive to see just how successful this series has become. It was recently announced that the first issue is set to receive its 10th printing, and most of the latest issues continue to be among the best-selling comic books of each respective month. Additionally, this hulking version of the Caped Crusader appears to be resonating with lots of different people. Not only are diehard comic readers mostly enjoying this series, but places like YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram are full of people who don't usually buy monthly comics, discovering and falling in love with Absolute Batman. I've even had numerous real-life friends who don't read comic books at all, asking me tons of questions about this run and how they can start reading it. While this success shouldn't be too surprising, given it's still a Batman comic after all, we shouldn't overlook that the entire Absolute universe was a bold creative swing. It's not inconceivable that fans could have rejected Snyder and Dragotta's new take on the Dark Knight, but instead they've embraced it largely with open arms, and it's become a beloved and seemingly era-defining series. When I spoke to Scott Snyder earlier this year, he discussed Absolute Batman's initial success, how it surpassed his expectations, and why he believes it's resonated with so many people.
I never expected it to take off the way it's taken off. I mean, I was really and internally, like, just to be completely transparent, the hope was that it would sell over 100,000 the first issue, maybe 120. And if we could manage that, that would be a big hit for us as an alternative Batman. And so I was just worried, can I hit those numbers? Nick was also, I really wanted it for Nick because Nick is amazing and I love him, but he's also not traditional. in terms of a DC style, and I just thought he was perfect for. He's the only person I asked to do it with me, and that whole I pushed really hard, promoting it and all of this, not because I wanted it to sell gangbusters, because I really didn't I didn't know if it would sell at all. I was worried it would sell half what they wanted. It's selling better than the original Batman did at this point, and that it's mind blowing. And even more exciting is people didn't just come in for Absolute Batman, but came in for Absolute Wonder Woman, Absolute Superman. They sold those books over 200,000+ and are keeping them at the top of the charts. It just speaks to the belief that we had in the whole line, which was when we first started that. Well, going back to your first question, like when Josh and I were talking about the size and scope of the All-In Initiative, we didn't know if we should do, 3 books in the Absolute Universe or less, maybe start with just one, the main line, maybe we do a few things called All-In. But every retailer we talked to, because the common wisdom was that the market was down. What we were afraid of was, how big do we go? We don't want to do anything that's going to hurt retailers. And when we spoke to retailers, we spoke to Steve at Third Eye and Gall at Midtown and Golden Apple, and we spoke a lot of different retailers, DCBS and Lunar and all distributors and Forbidden Planet. And we're like, what do you think we should do? How big? And they were like, as big as you can go, do all of it, do everything, because if you do it, the readership will show up because they want to be excited right now. They're tired of being told that superheroes are over. They're tired of being told comics are second fiddle to other things. Do comics as comics, like do it as this medium doesn't need any of that stuff. Show why and so to see the response overall was not just an affirmation of like our hopes for the initiative, but it was an affirmation of the retailer's wisdom, honestly, and the way in which they know their audience. And it was exciting to see that market will show up if you take a swing and do something that some people would be like, they're never going to show up for this, So it's been great in that regard. But that's kind of, with Absolute Batman, it's that compass of really being like, okay, don't be afraid of doing the things that traditionally might shake them off, because if you do make Joker this thing you want to make him, there's definitely not been a Joker like that. So it's a little bit like, but then I'm like, no, it's perfect for me. I love it. So I'm going to go for it and do it. And the series, it's just this relationship suddenly with readers where it feels like they want you to go further and want you to push. So.
Basically, ever since it was first announced, I've been a vocal advocate for the Absolute Universe. As far back as when I first heard about this initiative, months before it was officially announced, I thought it was such a genuinely exciting idea. And seeing both so many acclaimed and up-and-coming creators get the opportunity to work on these beloved characters and tell fun, unique, creator-driven stories with them has honestly been such an incredible sight to see. The fact that not just Absolute Batman, but the likes of Absolute Wonder Woman, Superman, and Martian Manhunter have all become celebrated tentpole DC books that have found a loyal and vocal audience is just fantastic. This entire initiative's success demonstrates audiences' desire for something different, bold creative swings to established heroes, and creators being allowed to take risks that they otherwise couldn't in mainstream comics. And as the flagship title, Absolute Batman is a great example of this. Although it's still a fairly conventional superhero comic at its core, it's also a book full of new ideas, clever and intriguing reworkings of classic lore, and the feeling that it's being driven primarily by its writer and artist, instead of editorial or corporate mandates. This, when combined with the series' consistent quality, Snyder's expert knowledge of Batman's mythos, and Nick Dragotta's gorgeous artwork, has made Absolute Batman a can't-miss title for so many readers, and created a buzz that's extended beyond the usual comic circles and into the broader world of pop culture. In many ways, it feels like the comic book of this particular moment, and it appears that DC, Snyder, and all of his collaborators have no intentions of slowing down, and have multiple long-term plans for this iteration of the Dark Knight and the universe he inhabits. Although I was incredibly excited when the Absolute Universe was first announced, admittedly I was somewhat skeptical about Scott Snyder returning to write Absolute Batman. As someone who is a huge fan of his New 52 run with Greg Capullo, and thoroughly enjoyed stories like Last Night on Earth, All-Star and The Black Mirror, he's among my all-time favourite writers for The Dark Knight. But that also meant that having read so many Batman-centric stories by him, I honestly felt like I'd already experienced everything the writer had to say about the character. However, immediately after reading the first issue of Absolute Batman, my mind was immediately convinced otherwise. Watching Snyder and Dragotta's grand vision for Bruce Wayne unfold throughout the 15 issues released so far has been a real highlight of 2025, as has seeing more and more people be won over by this new take on the Caped Crusader. And with the year's final issue revealing the shocking backstory of the Joker, it appears like 2026 will be another banner year for this series. So to answer this video's title, is Absolute Batman worth the hype? I highly recommend you check it out for yourself, but in my opinion, absolutely. Hey everyone, thank you so much for watching today's video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please make sure to leave a like on this video and leave a comment down below as well. Let me know your thoughts on everything we talked about in today's video. I can't wait to hear what you have to say as always. If you're new to Owen Likes Comics, please make sure to hit the subscribe button and the notify bell so you don't miss out on any other videos. And if you enjoyed this and you want some more, there should be some other videos on screen right now that you might also enjoy. If you want to help support the channel and help me make more videos, you can do so by going to patreon.com/OwenLikesComics, or if you just want some more of me, you can follow me on Twitter, Instagram and Blue Sky, just at Owen Likes Comics. But that's all for this video. Again, thank you all so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it, and hopefully I will see you next time. But until then, take care and keep reading.